everyone, this is Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's video, we're going to do some no-line coloring with this gorgeous Bouquet Builder 3 stamp set. I have the Bouquet Builder 3 combo set here. The stamp set is right on front. I'm going to kind of turn it here so you can see a little bit better. Lots of beautiful florals in this set. I went ahead and stamped that main image in antique linen distress ink onto Bristol paper, an A2 panel Bristol paper. I have my palette, some brushes, and now I'm going to spray some water into my palette. My palette is actually just some leftover packaging that my scoreboard came in. I'm going to use Tombow Dual Brush Pens to do my coloring today. I often like to start with the marker direct to paper, so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of going around the outline of this leaf and also coloring in about the upper third. The colors that I am using are on screen in the upper left corner so you can follow along. Once I got my color down on the paper, I'll take a damp brush and go over that ink and kind of stretch it and pull it down, bring that color down to the very tip of the leaf, and that will create a nice soft gradation on this leaf and kind of create the look of roundness. I'll repeat this process for all the leaves that kind of match this style of leaf. I will actually have 3 different groupings of greens for all the greenery in this bouquet. Now moving on to the second part of this set of greenery, I have a darker green here. I'm just going over at the very top of the leaf and again stretching that out. I'll also take this darker green and add it to some of the stems as well. I just like to create a little gradation here and there so it's a little bit more interesting, and I always try to soften a little bit with my slightly damp brush, and I'll repeat this process for all the remaining leaves in this family. Now I'm moving on to this big kind of rose image. I'm starting with the pink here at the very base of the petals, and I did it on the two of the roses, and I'm now taking my damp brush again and kind of blending that color out to at least the halfway point on each one of these petals. Now I'm going to move on to a darker shade. I actually colored this ink down onto my palette a little bit. You can see it over there on the right, and I am just picking it up with my brush here. My brush again is just slightly damp, just very little water. I don't think I can emphasize that enough. You just need a small amount of water to get that ink moving, and plus this Bristol paper is not like watercolor paper and it can't hold up to a lot of water, so just be very mindful and conscientious of your water usage or water amount in your brush. But I'm taking that ink and kind of going over the very tops of the petals and then stretching and pulling it down, and I'm also coloring kind of the back side of the petals because this is kind of my medium shade and it's definitely a bit darker than that pink that we used at the centers. I'm now repeating this process for the second rose that's side turned. So I wanted a little bit more contrast. I wanted my dark to be a little bit darker, so I have kind of like a darker purple pink color here, and I'm now coloring all the undersides of the petals with this darker color. I did start with direct to paper, but I probably should have, because it's so intense, I probably should have scribbled onto my palette and pulled from there, but I still was able to blend it out pretty well and get a nice gradation. This is just, again, get a little bit more contrast, because these are usually when they're larger areas, you have a larger surface area to color, I will incorporate more colors because you really need more contrast to kind of make that flower kind of pop and really get those darks darker. So now I am coloring the center, and I just have an orange picked out really quickly, just kind of colored and blended that out. Now I'm going to move on to some other florals in this bouquet, and I decided to make these smaller flowers kind of a purple color. So I started with a really light purple colored first and then blended it out, and then I colored a darker purple in the center. I'm just going to repeat that process for all those tiny little florals. It goes pretty fast because they're not very big. And I just used an orange for the center. Now my last grouping of florals, I'm going to kind of make them yellow and orange. So I'm starting with a really light yellow here, coloring most of the flower with this light yellow because yellow is such a light color, you're going to need more ink to kind of get it to stretch. And now I'm moving on to kind of like a soft orange for the centers, kind of blending it out. Well, really it's the center of the petals. I'm going to do a different color for the very center of the flower. So I'm coloring the very bottom of the petals here with this It's kind of soft orange and then kind of stretching it out over the petal to create a nice gradation. I'm sure you guys are starting to notice that I do like to use lots of different colors on the flowers. I just think it makes it look a little bit more interesting. I'm touching up this one flower here again because it's not quite as dark as I'd like, and now I'm moving on to my center color. This is kind of like a really pretty corally red, and again, just to make it kind of that center pop a little bit more, which makes the petals kind of pop a little bit more too. Just again, more of that contrast, just a little bit of that really corally red right in the center and kind of softening it with my damp brush. Now I'm moving on to another green. Again, I have three kind of groupings of green. Actually, for the last two groupings of green, I only use one marker. These are really fine kind of, this is almost like a sagey green, and these are really fine kind of frilly leaves. So I just kind of colored the stem in with my marker and just a tiny portion of each one of these tiny little leaves. And now with my damp brush, I'm just stretching that ink out over the petals, and again, just to create a nice soft gradation. I repeated that process for all the leaves in that family, and now I'm finishing up kind of the foliage for these yellow flowers. I picked a really pretty kind of teal blue-green color, and I am just stretching that color out over the base. Just very similar process to what I did for all the other portions of the greenery. And once I finish painting those stems, my bouquet is done. I really love this kind of wildflower look bouquet. It's nice and loose and soft and pretty. I think it's really perfect for no line coloring. So I'm going to trim this panel down. So I went ahead and trimmed it down just 1/8 of an inch on all the sides. So now it's a little bit smaller than an A2 panel. And I'm going to now do some dry embossing to my image just to add a little texture. I like to use my Cuttlebug for this. I'm started with my B plate, then on top I put my rubber mat, then I will place my panel down, and now I'm going to grab the matching die from the Bouquet Builder 3 combo set, and I'm going to align my colored image with the die. Once I get it perfectly aligned, I will grab a couple pieces of purple tape to hold that die in place, and then I will top my sandwich off with my second B plate. And then underneath my bottom B plate, I put 2 pieces of paper shim because I've learned with my Cuttlebug that I like that little bit of paper shim because it makes my impression a little bit deeper on my dry embossing. You'll just have to learn your die cutting machine and what kind of look you like. But here you can see I've got a beautiful dry embossed image. It has some great texture, kind of even makes those flowers pop a little bit more. So I went ahead and adhered my panel onto an A2 top folding card base made from 110-pound white cardstock. I also stamped and white heat embossed the sentiment from the Bouquet Builder 3 stamp set onto some black cardstock, trimmed it down to create these 2 little sentiment strips, and now I'm adhering them to the front of my card with some foam tape just to add a little bit more dimension. I really love the scripty font of these sentiment. It really goes nicely with the really thin lines in the bouquet. Now I'm going to add some sparkle here. I have Nuvo crystal drops. I'm using it as a glue. Just squeezed a small amount here, and I'm going to add these really beautiful, clear, sparkly rhinestone gems all around this bouquet just to add a little bit of sparkle. I prefer I did something a little different this time and didn't place it on the leaves or any of the flowers to make it look like dewdrops. I actually placed it kind of in some of the open spaces around the bouquet, and I really like that look. And once I put my last crystal down, my card is complete. I'll hold up the camera here so you can get a good look at those crystals and that no line coloring. I had so much fun no line coloring this bouquet, and I went with some really traditional colors, but I would love to try this image again with some less traditional colors. I think it would be really fun and pretty to see it a little different. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.